This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery. Ease is working to get the word out about National Expungement Week, and in particular is highlighting the efforts of Adam Vine and his organization Cage-Free Cannabis, which you can learn more about over at cagefreecannabis.com. Adam and his group work on different projects centered around repairing the harms caused to people and communities by the war on drugs, and have taken up the call to promote National Expungement Week, where events are being held all over the U.S. where people can go to get help in wiping their criminal records of now legal cannabis charges. You can find a list of those scheduled events and learn more about National Expungement Week itself by opening up offtherecord.us. That's offtherecord.us. If you or anyone you know could benefit from having your criminal record cleared, then please open up that website, offtherecord.us. And again, you can learn more about and support Cage-Free Cannabis over at cagefreecannabis.com and order legal California marijuana delivery at ease.com, spelled E-A-Z-E. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, October 24th, 2018, and you're tuned in to episode 598 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We start the day off in Arizona with some good news, as that state's attorney general has decided to reverse course on an attempt to make medical marijuana concentrates illegal, even though state voters passed in 2010 a ballot initiative legalizing medical cannabis. We've watched this storyline for a while now, as a registered Arizona medical marijuana patient named Rodney Jones was charged and found guilty of a felony for having a very small amount of cannabis concentrates on him, which legal law enforcement officials argued was not protected by the state's medical marijuana law. This one's been battling it out in the courts, and on Monday, Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich announced that his office was withdrawing its argument to the state Supreme Court that all cannabis concentrates be made illegal. Perhaps sensitive to the political implications of taking away people's medical cannabis in an election year, Brnovich said that he was afraid that banning concentrates would lead to unintended consequences for patients. This issue is still a little unsettled and is certainly full of lots of twists and turns, so I'd open up Arizona Capital Times for the full read. Alcohol giant Constellation Brands, which regular listeners will know for the billions of dollars it spent buying up part of Canadian licensed marijuana company Cannabis Growth, is reportedly selling off many of its wine brands to better position itself to focus on beer and cannabis. In all, sources say the company will sell more than $3 billion of its wine portfolio, including brands like Mark West, Arbor Mist, and Cook's. Reuters has it that Constellation Brands wine companies generated just under 39% of its net sales in the 12-month period ending in February, which was down from just under 45% the previous year. With the midterm elections just weeks away now, Kyle Yeager over at Marijuana Moment closes out our top stories today with a poll out of Wisconsin suggesting a couple of interesting points. First and foremost, Wisconsin voters are overwhelmingly in favor of legalizing adult use marijuana, with 64% of respondents supporting that proposition against 29% opposed. The other thing that grabbed my eye and pushed this story to our top three is the question asked of poll respondents if they were more or less likely to vote in an election if there's a cannabis question on the ballot. The good news for all of us is that 56% of respondents said that they would be more likely to actually get out and vote in an election with cannabis questions versus 19% who said that it would make them less likely. Of course, being more likely to vote in an election with cannabis questions doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to vote in favor of a more progressive marijuana law, but the political affiliation breakdown on that question shows that Democrats are by and large more motivated to vote in cannabis elections than their regressive peers on the other side of the political spectrum. Lots of good additional detail and nuance to open up and absorb, which you can read for yourself over at Marijuana Moments. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery. Ease wants you to take some time and visit offtherecord.us as well as cagefreecannabis.com, where you can learn more about all the very cool events going on this week where people can get help scrubbing their criminal records of now legal cannabis crimes. There are things scheduled all over the country in states where it's possible to expunge marijuana charges, which you can find again at offtherecord.us. There are events in Athens, Atlanta, Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, College Park, Denver, Detroit, Los Angeles, New Haven, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. If you or anyone you know lives in or near one of those places and could benefit from getting a marijuana charge expunged from the old criminal record, please take a moment and learn about all the things you need to know over at offtherecord.us. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, cagefreecannabis.com is where you can dive into more on a very cool organization that fights to repair the harms of the war on drugs. Thanks to everyone at ease.com for helping spread the good word today and for being there when California wants properly tested, packaged, and labeled legal cannabis delivered to them. All right, time for the Blitz. One of the two companies licensed to grow medical cannabis in Louisiana says that it won't be ready to sell products to patients until at least January. Officials with GB Sciences Louisiana met with state authorities on Monday and said that because of required testing and other logistical requirements, it won't have products fully tested and authorized for sale until the start of 2019. A state legislative council in Massachusetts just released a report recommending that legal marijuana taxes be used to pay for after-school programs to benefit low-income students. Studies show that students perform better in school when they have high-quality after-school programs to attend, and the Massachusetts After-School and Out-of-School Time Coordinating Council wants to channel to those programs an additional $1.3 million from cannabis taxes, in addition to their existing budget of $4.29 million. News is slowly trickling out of the Pacific nation of the Republic of Vanuatu, which is located out in the Pacific Ocean past Australia, that medical marijuana is on its way to being made legal. Vanuatu is made up of a number of islands and counts its citizens in the low 200,000s. According to reporting by Ben Zinga, Vanuatu started the process of legalizing medical marijuana quietly last month, with final legislation to be presented to the nation's lawmakers later this year. Tom Angel over Marijuana Moment scooped up an interesting story about prohibitionist group Smarter Approaches to Marijuana, also known as Project SAM, which pops up often enough in our headlines, usually over some baseless claim they've made about marijuana or some failed effort of theirs to stem the overwhelming tide of progressive cannabis law reform. Tom's story today has a slightly more sinister twist in it than a usual SAM headline, in that it highlights a new plan from the group to force marijuana users to undergo a mandatory state-led assessment of any problematic drug use, should they ever be busted for cannabis charges, even small possession. According to a document posted to their website last week and noticed by Tom, Project SAM's model legislation on this issue is pretty invasive and overreaching. It'd be more of a joke if it weren't for this current political climate. If there's any administration in which a group like Project SAM could get a ridiculous plan like this taken seriously, it's this orange-tinted garbage plate of a presidency. Give this one a read. Also, apologies to garbage plates. I enjoyed a number of those myself on late Rochester nights back in the day. Calling Trump a garbage plate is not very fair to garbage plates. Keeping on a two-headline Marijuana Moment train, we have Kyle Yeager's pickup of some great news for the broader effort to end the war on drugs. According to Kyle's reporting, a series of letters sent between Virginia Senators Tim Kaine and Mark Warner and the Department of Justice clear up the question of whether events coordinators and concert promoters are in danger of being persecuted by federal law enforcement if they should happen to provide amenities at their shows that help reduce the harms of drug use. That sounds like it shouldn't even be a question, but because of a federal law passed back in 2003 seeking to crack down on party drugs, folks who throw raves and other large gatherings of people could have faced charges if they were to provide things like drug testing kits or even free water to people who might have taken illicit drugs. Kyle's story jumps in as correspondence between Senators Kaine and Warner and the DOJ show that those event coordinators have nothing to fear from federal authorities if they provide harm reduction services to their guests. That's really good news. This one has lots of details and moving parts and is probably best read in full. The New York Times has an interesting story about how the nation of South Korea treats its citizens abroad in terms of drug use. Cannabis is illegal to use within the nation of South Korea, but in a bit of homegrown authoritarianism, the country also bans its citizens from using cannabis in other countries. That means that a South Korean tourist can face a lot of trouble back home if they were to, say, be photographed smoking legal cannabis in Canada, with possible fines of $44,000 and prison terms as long as 5 years waiting for them at home. Our final story today, as we tilt down towards the weekend, has to do with a recently released study on how Las Vegas residents use marijuana. This is another one you should open up in full, but in summary, cannabis has taken root deeply in Sin City, with more than half of all respondents saying they were regular cannabis consumers. With Las Vegas cannabis sales continuing to rise and more dispensaries being opened up by the week, it's pretty clear that the city has fully adopted marijuana into its toolkit of pleasurable vice. Another one to add to your list to read, if only for the helpful charts and graphs. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Ease, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.